An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6, Chapter 68, Battle of Highgarden Part 1. Brace yourselves, people. It was a cool morning, one unnaturally cool for this part of the Reach. It didn't faze the Northerners that she associated with, but Marjorie could tell. A chilly day that she was hoping did not act as an omen. Winter is coming, the new Lady Stark breathed, rubbing her stomach. You are certainly a Stark, Sansa quipped, allowing herself a moment of levity, before the beautiful land around them would become hells on earth. Her smile slowly turned into a frown. Fog over the heights of Luthor? Common? No, replied Marjorie. I've never seen fog on the heights in my life. Not a military strategist, she knew naught of whom that would help or hurt. Our brother and sister on the battlefield, as well as our men. Sansa's mind shifted to Podrick. Sweet, harmless Podrick. Her heart clenched, a silent prayer for his safety leaving her lips. My ladies. They turned to find Sir Davos. Sansa knew why he was here. Jon's orders to keep the women alive in case of defeat. To take them to Sam at Oldtown. We must move to the cellar. It's liable to get quite dicey out there. Nodding, Sansa placed her hand on Marjorie's shoulder and guided her away from the window. Sister, the Tyrell beauty murmured. The rumours of Cersei Lannister at the Battle of Blackwater Bay, when she was in the throne room, were they true? There was no doubt as to what Marjorie was referring to. Yes. She prayed it would not come to that. Line break. On this field, the fate of our land will be decided. Hearing Edaron hoot behind her, Daenerys turned her head towards her husband. Future histories will write of this day as our greatest victory. Or Joffrey's, Jon replied grimly, a sudden melancholy befalling him. If there are histories written in the future. He felt hands clasp his own, grey eyes meeting fiery amethyst ones. There will be. A kiss pressed to his lips. The sight of a proper Targaryen warrior queen, hair in a Dothraki war braid, black plate and mail armour draped with a red and black cloak. And we will win. Jon allowed the confidence to return, smiling at his wife. You know what to do? Of course, husband. As do you. She kissed him once more. I shall see you after the battle. With that, she made her way to Edaron, praying to whatever gods listened that she wouldn't have to fly Sansa, Marjorie, and the others to Riverrun, as she promised Jon the night before. A raven wouldn't have been sent there, so the prince and princess wouldn't be worried. We will win. Longing filled Jon as he stared at Edaron ascending to the sky. Protect her, my son, he whispered into the air. Your Majesty, Lord Stark, Lord Tully, Sir Payne, and Lord Caraz have signalled their readiness, Ollie stated, handing Jon a stack of dispatches. Jon didn't even have to read them. Let the dice fly high. The battlefield stretched 5 miles in width, arranged west to east, with a further 2 miles of floodplain separating the far left of the Imperial line from the Manda River, which sparkled in the light of sunrise. There, a mass of Dothraki and Vale Knights waited to protect the flanks of Edmure Tully's Riverlands, Stormlands, Essosi auxiliaries, and Ironborn Marines, holding the farmland and scattered hamlets northwest of Highgarden Castle. On the far right flank rested Robb Stark and his elite Northerners, coupled with Dornish irregulars. In the centre, a dense fog covered the heights of Luthor, though scouts had clearly seen the Unsullied and Hoplites withdraw to the lower ground nearer the castle. Like lambs to the slaughter, remarked Tywin Lannister from his command post. I shall enjoy dining in Highgarden again. We must secure that the Golden Company can keep the heights secure. Brandel Tully said. Lose them, and our entire force will unravel. Nonsense. They won't know if we have 200 or 20,000 on that hill. We can smash the Unsullied with your cavalry the moment they move to engage my brother's drive on Highgarden. Tywin spat on the ground. Sound the order. Full attack. Horns and drums resonated across the tranquil fields and grazing land of the Westerosi breadbasket. "Form up!" yelled the knights leading the battalion. "March!" Armour clanking as the packed lines of the army of the divine Chimera marched forward towards the imperial lines, banners waving in the soft breeze. Tywin and Randall Tully had arranged their lines according to scouting reports of the imperial dispositions. With the bulk of the enemy cavalry on the far imperial left, it seemed the attack would come from there, while the right was deliberately weakened, with likely over-reliance on the unsinkable defences of Highgarden to anchor the flank. This presented an opportunity. Keeping the thousands of elite Westerlands cavalry in reserve, Tywin had the sellswords and more remaining knights on his side, joined with his 130 war mammoths to fend off any Dothraki screamers' charge. Lord Steedman's own forces of the Stormlands, the Crownland Bannermen, Reach infantry loyal to Lord Tarley, and Prince Tristain's Dornish levies formed the opposition to Tully, while the 10,000-strong Golden Company would take the heights of Luthor and secure it. Tywin considered the centre to be a rather sleepy portion of the battlefield. It was on the Lannister left that the action would occur, facing against the weakened forces of Robb Stark and a likely attempt to withdraw gradually to the defences of the castle. As Robb had done once during the War of the Four Kings, Tywin intended to punch through and force a rout before Robb could conduct such a withdrawal. To do this, he allocated the entirety of his crack Westerlands men-at-arms under his brother Kevan. The strategy was ambitious, but he was certain he'd have Highgarden captured by the end of the day. As soon as the Lannisters were in range, the cannon, rockets and archers let loose. The battle was already a slaughter before the first pair of blades even met each other. Hundreds falling from projectiles, along the Manda River, Dothraki screamers met their match with armoured knights, smashing through their front with lances and allowing the whooping sellsword cavalry and warmouthers to a clean advantage in the momentum to follow up the charge. As the competing shield walls engaged each other along the imperial left, rivers of blood have already been shed. Nadjagor Tergon. Slower than Balerion and less powerful, Edoron made up for it with increased agility and reaction time via his slimmer frame. Daenerys felt the wind whip through her braid as her child looped and dove to the ground. Below, on the left flank, Edmure, Tully and Gendry were giving ground to the onrushing Dornish, while an entire 2 battalions of Essosi had been cut off within a small collection of farmhouses and annihilated by Alliser Steon's forces. Now trying to turn the flank while Lord Royce was distracted in an all-out cavalry showdown with Lyn Corbray. Only one way to even the odds. Dracarys! Opening his maw as if to roar, the dragon instead let loose a jet of flame. The roaring attack incinerated hundreds of Stormlanders in an instant, Edoron continuing along the edge to the far right of the Divine Army, before Daenerys pulled him up. 2 rockets and a scorpion bolt shot by, causing her to order Edoron to bank leftward towards the rear of her own forces. "Cannot lose another dragon," she kept repeating, hoping that her support had succeeded. The Empress's hope proved true. Delayed as Steedman brought up forces replaced those now charged skeletons, it gave enough time for Edmure to bring up several reserve battalions, and the giant king, Magmar Tun-Do-Wag, to extend the line and prevent being flanked. The western battle was shaping up as a massive stalemate, charges and counter-charges only managing to move front line 50 yards here and there. "Knock!" yelled Robb, horse straining as he rode up and down the line. The northern shield wall was holding under extreme pressure, but had to give nearly a quarter of a mile of ground as Kevan Lannister launched attack after attack. Bodies lined the field, Robb being forced to commit the Dornish into the fray to project the integrity of his northerners. Lady Tain Martell and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater, both leading them from the front, managed to stem the second attack, but exhausted their lightly armed and armoured irregulars. It wouldn't be enough, though. Kevan Lannister readied a third charge almost immediately, while bringing up rockets. Robb rallied his archers as the third Lannister charge formed up. "Loose!" 500 archers let their payloads loose, arcing upwards and raining onto the Lannisters, weakening their formations. "Jon, I hope you know what you're doing," Robb thought. "Retreat!" At once the Imperial line collapsed, or at least seemed to. The orders had been drilled for weeks now, and battalions stayed bunched up while all the semblance of a greater formation collapsed in a mad dash for Highgarden. Reeling from the last-minute barrage of arrows, the men of the Westerlands saw their enemy fleeing en masse. A battle cry went up. Anger and vengeance for Blackwater rushed boiling within them. They disregarded all orders and charged themselves, only egged on from their officers. The rout began. The assault on Highgarden itself now in full swing, as the elite of the Chimera's army committed itself fully. On the top of the heights of Luthor, Captain Harry Strickland ran a hand through his damp blonde locks. Normally the Blackfire helmet of gold and red would adorn his head, as it did for all soldiers of the Golden Company. But with the all-encompassing mist that draped the heights, he couldn't take the suffocating mugginess. "I can't see shit," he thought, muttering profanities in several languages as he surveyed his men. Rows and rows comprising 10,000 elite troops, veterans of many a debt collected, venture gone badly. "Captain Strickland!" Turning, Strickland saw Kevin Lannister riding out of the mist. "Why haven't you got in?" "Lord Tarley wants my men holding the heights, my lord." They were explicit orders from the Lord of Hornhill. Stay as an anchor on the strongest position short of Highgarden itself. Tarley had been perplexed that even the coward Jon Snow abandoned it, and was wary of some sort of trick. Kevin Lannister scoffed. "Those orders are countermanded." He handed Strickland a dispatch, one bearing the seal of Lord Hand Tywin himself. "I have 2 battalions coming to hold this line. You will move your entire force under my command and strengthen the assault on Highgarden." Blinking, Strickland read the words with bafflement. "My lord, that would leave the centre dangerously unprotected. Lord Tarley said—" "I don't give a fuck what Lord Tarley said," Kevin snarled, pointing in the general direction of the south. "Hear that?" The boom of cannon and popping of rockets resonated through the mist. We've broken through on the left. Those are our men dying at the fucking earthworks and surrounding Highgarden. Where the food is that will feed King's Landing. Order your men into the fray, or by the 7 gods I will kill you." Looking at his trumpeter, Strickland sighed. "Yes, my lord." "Sound assembly! Double quick march!" The orders hooted from the bugle. The Golden Company began its ponderous march into the thick of the fighting. Lowering his spyglass, Jon allowed himself a smug grin. The fog was everywhere in the centre around the heights. "Praise be to the gods, father," he muttered, hoping that both Ned Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen heard him from the afterlife. Jon suspected they did, and it filled him with comfort. "See that there?" Podrick and Sir Barristan gazed to where the Emperor's fingers pointed. Sure enough, the first battalions of golden sellswords emerged out of the mist on their quick march towards Highgarden. The Golden Company is abandoning the heights," Barristan breathed. "Right on schedule." "How many minutes till the centre can reach the heights?" Silently he called out. Around 20 minutes, sire," Podrick responded. "Good," Jon whispered as Rhaegar landed on the ground, wings beating a mighty gust of air that caused a struggle to stay upright, even for those on horses such as Podrick. "Barristan, you're with me. Podrick, get over there with all haste. Confer with Grey Worm and attack in half an hour. Sweep everything before you and take the heights. Understood?" "Yes, your majesty." Slapping the man he hoped to be his brother by marriage on the back, Jon stepped towards Rhaegal. "Gird your loins, Podrick. In half an hour, you'll know what needs to be done." Hand resting on Rhaegal's side, he was rewarded with a low purr of contentment. One by one, he climbed the dragon's spines. "One sharp blow, and the war is over." "Aye, your majesty," Podrick shouted back, bowing once more, before spurring his horse into a gallop. He had no doubt Grey Worm had the men of the centre in marching order. As he and Sir Barristan nestled on Dragon's back, Jon rubbed Rhaegal's scales. "This is it, boy. The big one." A grunt in response. "Cervez!" The dragon roared and leapt into the air. "Fire!" Hearing the cannon roar behind him, in spite of the ringing numbness in his ears, Yazan Zogaraz was nevertheless glad to be on the giving rather than receiving end of these infernal devices. 5 others boomed in quick succession, sending a deadly volley careening over the heads of the northerners settling inside the earthworks and houses. They shot straight towards the mass of Lannister infantry charging at Lady Tywin's gorgeous militia. Formation had been broken through in the mad dash, and the projectiles created a slaughterhouse of jagged flesh, primal screams, and spurting blood. But the thousands kept coming. "The fuckers are gonna break through." Tormund Giantsbane said matter-of-factly. At the vantage point of the towering battlements of Highgarden Castle, they could see it as plain as day. Hopefully you know what you're doing, Wardling. Garaz might not have been an expert in tactics, but he even knew those that would have had an issue with leaving the gates to the castle wide open.
Fucking aye, Tormund grinned. Gotta keep 'em coming.
Air filling with high-pitched scream, they dove for cover as a duo of rockets slammed into a nearby mantle, showering bits of charred wood and rock every which way. A manic laugh left the waddling chief as he jumped up to his feet.
Gonna sit there like fucking cowards? Or are you gonna join me?
He drew his axes and raced down the stairs. Shaking slightly, Garaz grabbed his helmet and fastened it tightly onto his head, suddenly grateful for the restrictive chainmail under his tunic. He made up his mind, vowing to prove himself as someone other than a craven, shady optimist. "Archers! Knock and fire at will!" he ordered, drawing his scimitar and following Tormund to the courtyard. Battle-hardened and tightly organised, the Northerners crossed the mid-morning fields, following their retreat in good order. Imperial quartermasters and the loyal townsfolk had fortified the town as well as possible, stockpiling earthen barriers and barrels of water for fighting fires. However, Dornish irregulars were in a bad way. So skilled in bushwhacking and raiding, they were inexperienced in battle. Only the iron will of Lady Tyene and the tenacity of Sir Bronn kept them in order. Their retreat was sloppy and only served to heighten the bloodlust of the Westerland's men-at-arms giving chase. Plate armour and ragged shield wall managing to lessen the impact of the dense swarm of arrows and crossbow bolts sailing towards them. Cannon fired deadly, but too little. The head of a 16,000-strong behemoth slammed into the town as the Dornish scrambled into the earthworks. A little over 12,000, including the wildlings and masters inside the castle, faced them. Booms of cannon and hissing of rockets dwarfed the cacophony of blade and battle cry as the two armies embraced the form of death. The Lannisters were out for blood, and Robb Stark had ensured that they would get plenty. Lannister blood. Though far more heavily armoured, as with the Whispering Wood, the Lannisters were unable to bring such an advantage to bear. Their charge left them unorganised and out of formation, the impact of their steel muted by the urban terrain and stubborn earthworks.
"Shield wall, boys!"
Robb screamed, driving ice straight into the gap between a red cloak's breastplate and shoulder blade. In a fluid motion, the scattered northern forces brought their shields into ragged walls wherever they could, Dornish irregulars filling the gaps. They beat back Lannister storm attempts, shields blocking spears, arrows and blade, swords stabbing through gaps to kill those foolish to attack individually. Muddy roads became slicker with blood as the Lannisters pulled back and resumed the assault in a ragged formation. One group of 2,000 redcloaks, those under the banners of House Marbrand, Craighall and Stagspear, rallied under the able leadership of Sir Steffon Stagspear. Copying the Emperor's plan from the crossroad, Sir Steffon threw in whatever crossbowmen he could find at the northern shield wall, defending the main road to Highgarden Castle. The men of House Glover found their shields under sustained fire from hundreds of crossbows, more than they could take as dozens began falling. Redcloaks charged at the earthworks under covering fire, scrambling up the defences in far less bloody assault. Lord Glover realised his men could not hold in the open.
"Withdraw to the alleyways!"
he ordered, his men breaking into barely organised companies in frenzied flee the crossbowmen.
"For Marbrand!"
With a cry for their beloved fallen leader, the men of the Westerlands surged forth into the open roadway to their target. It was soon joined by a curdling cry. "Rains of Castamere!" Flames sprouted all over town. Through the smoke, the commander of the Tyrell garrison still couldn't miss the head of the massive red-armoured host charging at the gatehouse, a sight the Rains and Tarbecks undoubtedly saw before the storming of Castamere. Only he wasn't going to lose the castle.
"Ready, men! We are roses, but roses have thorns!"
A sharp battle cry rang out as the head of the Lannister line reached the open gate. "No!" Boiling and steaming, at the order, 2 large cauldrons of scalding tar and oil were overturned over 2 holes in the gatehouse floor, cut through the wood by the quartermasters. Dozens of men racing through the open gate to the Jewel of the Reach were enveloped in the searing deluge. Blood-curdling screams left gaping throats as liquid burned and blistered with every inch of skin, boiling the Lannister troops within their plate armour. A Tyrell soldier dropped a torch from the above gatehouse, igniting the oil and tar, and turning the entrance into an inferno, immolating further dozens. Kevin Lannister watched with trembling rage from the new command post. The Golden Company reinforcements would mean nothing if they were stuck in a charnel house against the walls of the castle. "Hit that gatehouse with every rocket you've got!" "My lord, we need to suppress the houses. It won't matter if we can't get into the fucking castle. Do as I fucking say." Minutes later, the mobile batteries launched their payload. Rockets arced towards their target, black grey smoke trails and brilliant yellow exhaust masking their inaccuracy. Aiming for the guardhouse, all but one slammed into randomly within a 100-yard radius, hitting houses, castle walls, or within the courtyard, sowing chaos and wounding many, but no decisive carnage. The one that met his mark was a stunning success. Gathering more tar and oil to drop on the next charge, the rocket detonated on a weak point in the gatehouse walls. That was a mere wood mantle rather than stone. The resulting spark sent the tar and oil ablaze, soon engulfing the whole battlement and roasting those that hadn't quite made the escape. Providence kept the fires contained to the gatehouse, but the damage was done. The gate was unprotected. Cheers left the throats of the boys of the Westerlands as they prepared their next assault. "The Raids of Castamere!" Behind them, the first of the Golden Company arrived on the field. Bronn watched as 4 red cloaks burst through the doorway of a thatch house. One barely had time to react as Tyene dropped from a roof beam and stabbed her dagger underneath the lip of his helmet. Another hesitated, stunned. Bronn ensured the red cloak paid the price by kicking the man's shield and sending him toppling. Easy pickings to blood his sword. He darted back quick enough to escape the swing of the third sword, just. As he parried the blow, an ever-growing whistling filled his ears. Observant, Tyene shoved her entire body into the red cloak's shield. "Run!" Bronn used an opening to slice the third's arm off and run with her. They had just reached an open window when the rocket punched through the thatch and detonated. "Now that is more like it," commented Tywin Lannister from atop his command post miles away. Already greasy black pyres of smoke rose from the castle and the town surrounding it, as if the fires of 3 weeks before had been magnified tenfold. "We shall have Highgarden wrapped up by nightfall." "It's just the damn fog that worries me," Randall Tarley mused, the same dark scowl planted on his face. "We should have kept the Golden Company on the heights." Tywin scoffed. "And squander away our moment of triumph? We need to take their spirits and their castle. It ends today, Lord Tarley." He moved his eyes to their right flank, where the Dornish and Crownlanders were engaged in a bloody melee with Riverlanders and Essos auxiliaries. Further west, hemmed in by the width of the Manda River, Lyn Corbray's heavy cavalry and the bulk of the sellswords battling with the Dothraki and Vale Knights. Already waters beginning to run red with the blood of men and beast. Besides, no one is dumb enough to attack the high ground in dense fog. And yet, "Come on! For God's sakes, come on!" "Commander!" yelled one of the senior battalion commanders, a veteran of every campaign in the Emperor's War. "We can't see a damn thing!" The northern phalanx tramped up the still damp ground of the heights. They were in the van of tight terraqueos of the Unsullied, but Podrick couldn't even see a single line behind them in the pea-soup thick fog that still hung over the heights. Sweat dripping down his brow, even the grittiest under his command tensed as they made one step after another towards the summit of the hill. If the Lannisters continued to occupy it in force... Podrick was undeterred. "Do not stop, men! Do not stop, no matter what!" One, bellowing at the top of his lungs, served as a far more of a morale booster, as he and his father Dongo headed up the van. One carried a single large log while Dongo held his massive bow, ready to sweep aside any attacking force. Jon having learned a lesson from the Battle of the Bastards about how to use the giants. Suddenly, without warning, the fog simply disappeared. 1 minute it was there. The next brought the shining sun, rays stabbing through the mist, banishing it to each of the 7 hells. Not a cloud in the sky. The battlefield spread out as clear as the sparkling waters of the River Trident. And what a sight it was! What few forces the army of the Divine Chimera still kept atop the heights, as a rearguard force of about 2,000 and another 1,000 forces in transit towards the battle for the castle, was stunned to see row upon row of gleaming northern hoplites and unsullied pikemen charging like a herd of mammoth directly for the summit of the heights. The Lannister bannermen were green troops that Tywin was willing to gamble among the heights that with the certainty that the fog would mask their weakness, only for it to mask the Imperial strike right for the heart. The incoming Imperials, spears bristling and shouting their war cries, broke the Lannisters. Some commanders managed to fight where they stood, getting cut down by the spearmen or wild swings from one. Others withdrew in good order, while many routed. In any case, with minimal casualties, the top of the heights of Luthor were now claimed for House Targaryen Stark. Flying low above the battlefield, the green visage of Rhaegal shrieked a roar so loud it would have been said that even King Joffrey could have heard it. Jets of dragonfire finished off the last of the green forces atop the hill, hoplites and Unsullied taking their place. Stallion rearing on its hind legs, Podrick Payne bellowed as loud as his lungs could take, "Who holds Westeros? We do!" The boom of the soldiers resonated across the field, broadcasting far and wide the new owners of the Heights of Luthor. Bright rays of sunlight illuminated the whitewashed direwolves upon the shields as Targaryen Stark banners fluttered in the late morning breeze. "Who! Who!" They smashed their spears and blades upon their shields, raising such a clatter. "Who holds Westeros? Who! We do!" Making another pass above them, all could see the Emperor draw his sword from atop Dragonback. Even airborne, he still fought beside them as he had in battlefields close and far. "Who! In the command post of the divine army of the Chimera, Tywin gazed through his spyglass with a trembling hand, half furious, half terrified. His best troops were embroiled in a furious assault upon the castle, and now they were laid bare to the assault from the rear. Assault from the elite Unsullied shock troops. "My lord?" Randall Tarly asked, true question left unsaid. Tywin snarled in frustration. "Heavy cavalry reserved to the centre. We don't have infantry support. You lead them." End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that because holy moly. Talk about intense. I could see that unfolding before my eyes. I almost couldn't see the words. That was something else. Go Podrick. And I like how the fog randomly lifted. I think that's divine providence speaking there. You know how the gods were angry at Joffrey? Maybe this is something else adding to that. And wow. Okay, Jon is showing Tywin a thing or two. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Remember to check out my other videos and remember to like, comment and subscribe. Hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And remember to have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!